All right. Well, we are right at the top of the hour. And my name is Heather Wade, and I am here supporting Jared in this amazing Profitable Steward workshop today. We're so excited to be here. And we're going to get started. And I want to ask everyone if you guys can make sure that your mics are muted for right now. But we want this to be a very interactive workshop. So you're going to be coming off mute many times today. The other thing that we're going to ask you to do is turn on your cameras. We love to see your faces. We want to know that there are real people behind the cameras here. And so it's okay if you have a few other things going on in the room. It's okay if you're not in the most luxurious living room right now, right? If you're in your kitchen, we don't really care what your background is. We just care about your beautiful faces and we would love to see them. The more faces that we see, the better interaction we will be able to give you and serve you at a much higher rate. So if possible, please turn on those cameras. And then take a minute and chat. We would love for you to introduce yourself. I want to know a few things. Wendy's there. She's got to start it off. Hello from Oklahoma. So tell us where you're from. We'd love to know a little bit about your current operation. What are the things that you're involved with? Potentially we're gonna assign you group A and group B. Group A would be somebody that is about 100,000 in gross profit right now in the operation that you're running. So tell us if you're group A. If you're under that or you're just getting started with this idea, no problem. Then you're in group B. We just want to serve you in the way you need to be served. So let us know what group you're in. And the other thing, so your name, where you're from, if you're group A or you're group B, and what your current operation looks like a little bit. What are the things that you're focusing on? What are you doing? If if you're multi-generational, we'd love to know that. Like, what are your favorite things about the operations that you're running? Tell us those things. And then the other thing that I want and that we is helpful for all of us is what do you want from this event today? We are going to learn some really amazing, cool stuff that will change your perspective on many things. So there was an interest for you to be here. Something caught your eye. What did you come here to learn? What do you want to know when you leave this event? What is it that you want to accomplish? Let us know what that is so that we can meet those needs as well. Awesome, great. Kevin, Shane's from Kanab. We got some Utah people here. We got Canada. That's awesome. Some from the East, North Dakota. That's awesome. Oh, I love seeing so many people from so many places. This is great. All right. We always love, we include God in all of the things that we do. And so we love to kick off these events in prayer. So we would love to start with that. And Jared, is there somebody that you have asked to do that, or would you like me to do that?
So Kirk Corbridge has agreed to offer the prayer for us. So Kirk, if you'd be willing to do that, that'd be awesome.
I'd be glad to. Thank you. Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful for this amazing country that we get to live in, and we're grateful to be part creators in your creation. And we pray that as we go into this adventure, that we might be able to learn and have our minds opened and clear and active. We pray that those that are presenting will be blessed, not only in their presentations, but for their sacrifice in trying to put this together. These things we ask for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you. All right. Well, we've got some rules as we jump in because we want to create a really safe place for everyone to be in. And so, Jared, if you want to screen share and pop those up for us, it's always helpful to see them. We're going to go through them. And then as we go through them, be thinking about, are there additional rules that you feel like you need to create safety for you in this room? Because we want to add whatever is necessary for everyone to be their best over these next 2 days. So our first rule is be respectful. Everyone's at different levels doing a little bit different things. And when questions come in, that we can be respectful and kind as we answer and as we help others in the group. Just make sure it's a really great, safe environment for everyone, and obviously treat others how you would want to be treated. The second one is we want you to be present. We know that it's a sacrifice for you to take these next 2 days to be here with us. We also know that it's so important that the things that Jared and the rest of the team will be sharing with you over the next 2 days could potentially be life-changing for you. And we don't want you to miss out on those things that are especially for you. So as much as possible, we are asking that you be present. We understand that you might have to step away for a minute or two here and there, and we understand that. If you have to step away, but you can leave the voice on, do that. Whatever is possible to be here, we are asking that you do that. And then the third thing is we are asking that you give 100%. Everyone's 100% is going to look a little bit different. But we want you to give all that you can give to this event. You come with a lot of knowledge and information. And perhaps if you have something that you feel like you can share that's of value on topics that we're talking about, we would love for you to do some of that sharing and participate with us. So really important, giving 100%. Is there any other thing, any questions with those rules? I'm going to scroll the chat here. Good, MJ, you're taking some notes. Fabulous. When you guys message, choose, make sure you're using the meeting group chat will be helpful. Then that way everyone can see it. If you need a private message, Jared or I, no problem. Okay, any questions with those rules? Okay. Great. So, is there any additional rules that you feel like would need to be added or included into this to make this the most epic event you've been at all year long? It's going to be the best event of the year, you guys. Martha, you're happy to be here. We are happy that you're here, for sure. Okay, any additional rules? All right. Well, I get the privilege to introduce one of the coolest, kindest, most authentic, genuine people that I know. And that is Jared Sorensen. I have known Jared and Selena, his wife, for about 8 years now. And I remember the first time that I met them, we went to a retreat together and just had a really great time. And I just like, they're down to earth, just cream of the crop people. And it's always fun to be able to spend time with Jared. So I am honored to be able to be here to serve in a support role to him during this event. So Jared and Selena have been married for 27 years. And they're third generation ranchers, which I absolutely love. They're keeping the legacy going. And they're doing it in a really amazing way. Jared has learned so many things over the years, and that's what he's bringing to you today. He's going to bring you the information that has changed his life, and he wants to share some of that with you. So he is involved in ranching for profit, right? Some of you are probably running some operations that might not be profitable. And Jared was probably there at one point, and he knows the struggle that is. He's been able to turn that around and create some phenomenal profit for his family and for the legacy that he's leaving for future generations. Jared's got, I believe, one grandkid, and he'll show you the picture of his family. It's super beautiful. You'll love seeing it. But I'm sure that's one of the joys of his life is enjoying the grandkid, and I'm sure there's more to come, and they'll probably happen really fast.
Yeah, we're actually at 3 now. I guess I got to update my bio a little bit.
You better update that. When I looked at
and one more in December. So
wow, congratulations.
I think we've been married longer than 27 years too. I think it's like 28 or something. So
okay. Well, I need to update my bio. It's a long time, right?
Yeah.
But every year is important. It's awesome. So Jared's written a book. He has his regenerative certification. He produces podcasts. He does a lot of virtual summits. He is an amazing speaker and trainer. And so he is here today to bring some of the wealth of knowledge that he's learned over these years to you, because he has a desire that you are successful in your operations, no matter where you're at right now. So I am, with all due respect, I am super excited to bring to you Jared Sorensen.
Well, hey, thank you, Heather. I appreciate that. How's my volume now? Is that okay? Okay, cool. Yeah, we appreciate Heather being here. So I want to give a shout out to Heather and Austin. If you guys want to come off mute, I think we can probably somehow we can pin this and pin. Margot might be able to help us with that too. Margot, if you can pin Austin here. We just want to do a brief introduction so you kind of have the flow. So this event's going to be a little bit different than the last one that we did. The last one was, there we go. Hey, I think you guys should be able to see all three of us now, right? The last one that we did, we had multiple speakers over the 2 days. This one, it's going to be less speakers, and it's set up as a workshop style where we'll be working on your businesses or your future businesses. And these two great people that are here with me, Austin and Heather, they're here to support. Heather's kind of emceeing this and helping with that end of it. And then also based on the answer that you guys gave at the beginning, and if you missed that, the three things that we needed to know were like where you're from, what your enterprises are, or what you do on your operation. And then if you're north of 100,000 gross sales, it would be A. If you're not quite there yet, it would be a B. So those are the things that will help us to best help you. So Heather and Austin will be meeting with some of you, and we'll be walking through. You'll get based on your answer, you'll get an invite. And we're going to be rolling out something a little bit different here also this year. We're offering options that will meet the needs of more people who've shown up here. We're going to give you the option to be able to work with us one-on-one. For some of you, you might not quite be there yet. And so we've just barely rolling it out. We've got a group coaching option, which is much more affordable. The working with us one-on-one, that's a 5-figure investment. And we know that you'll get out of it what you put into it. The other side is where you can start out and you can grow with us. And it's more of a group offer. So with that, Austin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then Heather, you can give a brief introduction. You introduced me, and I appreciate that.
Hey everyone, it's great to be on the workshop today. I've been able to work with Jared here for a few months and just love the passion and enthusiasm that he brings to the agriculture industry. I am from West Central Missouri, so I'm a Midwest boy. Grew up on a small cow-calf operation, and my wife and I started our farm 2017 called Legacy Livestock Company. So I'm one of y'all. I'm right there in the mix with you guys on producing cattle and being involved in agriculture. We've got 3 beautiful daughters, and my wife and I love to spend time outside in our garden, hunting, fishing, team roping, doing all the good stuff that comes with living in the country. So I'm really excited to be a part of the group today and look forward to visiting with y'all.
Thanks, Austin. Yeah, I appreciate you being here. So, and then Heather.
Austin is super cool. If you guys get the chance to talk to him, it's going to be amazing. He's great. So my name is Heather Wade. I have been married for 25 years to my husband, and we've got 6 kiddos. They range from the age of 24 down to my baby is 8. And we don't have any grandbabies yet. So I keep real quiet about that. I just let them figure out their stuff, right? And when they come, it'll be so amazing. So currently I live in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. We've been living partially semi-retired for 4 years and love the sunshine. We're learning how to surf, all those things that are not on the ranch, right? So I'm a city girl. I'm not a ranch girl, but my ultimate goal is to homestead. And so we've taken some of Jared's ideas and we've started small scale on some of the things that he's going to be teaching to make sure that, we're growing some of our own food and we're doing some of those things because we also, like Jared, believe that that's really important. So I also represent a company called Smart Growth Solutions that supports Jared. We help him with his marketing and we help run some of these events. So happy to be here doing that today. And I'm one of the business strategists. So some of you will get a chance to talk to me as well. And even though I am not I didn't grow up in agriculture, I do know some about it. And what I can bring to the table is that I I understand marketing. I understand sales. I understand holes in businesses. I understand being profitable and making sure that we secure some of those places where we aren't profitable. And so those things are the same in business. They correlate to agriculture as well. And so if you get the chance to talk to me, we're going to be diving into some of those details to figure out what's not working in your business and how can we change that? How can we make that be better for you? And so I'm just here to live my best life and to serve you in any way. So you're free to message me if there's anything you should need, technical resources or anything. Both Austin and I are here to help you guys.
Very cool. Well, thanks, you guys. It's great to have you in the room. And yeah, when you guys get the chance to visit with them, you'll be well served, well taken care of. And the ideas, during those calls, it's called a strategy call to be able to see where you're at, where you want to go, and then create the best path to be able to get there. So I'll go ahead and remove the pins from you guys. And so if there are questions, logistical questions during the chat, we also want to introduce Margot. Margot is in the Philippines. She works with Smart Growth Solutions and Amy Walker's team. They're the team that do all of the production side of it, that help me to be able to focus on teaching and working with people one-on-one. When I first started out, in teaching in the company that we now call Steward, I tried to do everything on my own, and it didn't go very far. I mean, it was working. We did our first summit in January of 2022 or 2023, I guess it was. So almost 2 years ago. And we had about 300 people register for that. And it was one of the hardest things that I'd done up to that point in my life. Because it was such a steep learning curve for me to handle all the technology and line up all the speakers and make sure everybody had the right Zoom links and all that stuff. And so I would say it was a success. You know, we did reach out to 300 people. We had an amazing lineup of speakers. That summit is still available on our YouTube channel. You can go back and watch it. And it was great. But it was hard. And so when Amy Walker came to me and she said, "I see what you're doing, Jared. Would you like to work with us to help you do what you do best and take care of the things that that you're not so competent in?" And so we talked about that, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good fit. So since then, we've gone on to do, we just completed the 4th summit. So I imagine most of you were on the summit. Maybe just go ahead and put in the chat if you were on the summit, type in a 1. If you're on the summit, if you missed the summit a couple of weeks ago, put in a 2. Kind of give me an idea where you're from. Yeah, appreciate it, Amy. So a lot of you have been on the summit. Cool. Yeah. And like Heather said, remember when you're typing in the chat, make sure it's to everyone and not just me, unless you want to private message me. But back to Margot. Margot works for Amy, who we started working with. It was kind of right after the summit of 2023. And so if there are technical questions, private message Margot in the chat. That would be really helpful. For example, if audio cuts out, whatever that might be, or if you have questions about when we're going to start up after a break and things like that, I'll try to keep Margot informed. We'll walk through kind of the logistics of how this is going to work, and appreciate those who've put their cameras on. That really helps us to have more interaction, to be able to see your smiling faces and for each other to get it. And I get it. Gail's out feeding again or doing something out there. I see her. She was involved in the summit. We appreciate that. Good to see you on here, Colt. Yeah, you guys are awesome. We appreciate, and David, appreciate that. I think you private messaged me. Those came in really quick. Maybe right after lunch. I think David had something that he wanted to share with us. So we'll give you an opportunity. Does that work, David? Right after we do our lunch break. So I'm in Pacific time. I'm in rural Nevada. Maybe this afternoon we'll go for a walk with my phone and we can kind of see the landscape. Um, People think of Nevada and they think Las Vegas and hot desert dry. That's not our part of Nevada. We would look more like, I know there's some folks here from Idaho, northern Utah. So we're high desert. We have 4 seasons. Everything's gone dormant now. We've had a couple really hard killing frosts. Had snow yesterday. Didn't stick. But that's our home. So as I look out the window, I see, our fields and grass, and we just shipped out the last of our custom grazing yearlings last week. So on our operation, we had this year we had 2,000 yearlings and about 800 cow-calf pairs that we ran for the summer season. So we strive to practice what we preach. I mean, we're in the business right along with you guys. We're largely custom grazing. We have a sell by marketing enterprise, which my son Justin is running with and has done quite well this year with doing that. Thanks to Richard and Tina McConnell and Doug Ferguson, who was on our summit, and also the principles that I learned from Bud Williams. And I know there's some of you that mentioned that. I know Marlene's on here. She does sell by marketing. If you want to learn more about that, there are some resources for that on our YouTube channel. So we're starting to destock for the winter. We still have the dry cows. We shipped the calves off a while ago. Dry cows will be going out here probably in the next couple weeks, and then we'll be kind of destocked for the winter. So let me turn my phone off here. That's kind of silly, but we appreciate. That's a good reminder. I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb. My wife's messages will come through, but nobody else should, because we're focused here. So eliminate the distractions, like Heather said, be present. That'll help us to get the most out of this experience. Very good. Well, we're going to share screen here and we're going to jump right in. So appreciate Heather giving us an introduction. Reminder of the rules. So this is where we're at. We're in this northeast corner of Nevada. Our company's name, the branch name is Secret Pass Livestock, and Secret Pass Land, or Secret Pass Ranch is the entity that holds the land. We'll talk about why we structured it that way, why it's should have an operating enterprise or an operating entity and also a land entity, which is very wise for different reasons. So we operate on both sides of this mountain range. We have on this side of the mountain about 10,500 deeded acres. We lease an additional 12,000 acres, and then a little bit of Forest Service. So most of this that we operate on is private, which is a little different than most of our neighbors here in northeastern Nevada, where 90+% of the land here in Nevada is publicly owned. Ours is a little bit different than that. And then we also have, this is more where we spend the winter, is on this side of the mountain. This is where I'm at right now. This is Clover Valley, and over here is Ruby Valley. I wish we had time for you guys to all walk us through where you're at and be able to see. We'll give you more of a virtual tour here of where we're at. So Heather went through that. This is our family here. This is a little bit outdated because we now have 1 or 2 more grandchildren and 1 daughter-in-law and 1 grandchild very soon on the way. So family is a big part of why we do what we do. And I can imagine it's probably the same for a lot of you too, right? The business aspects of it, the cows, the grass, that's definitely something that we enjoy, but the family part of it, that's where it's at. Okay, so where did it all start? So I think that would make us married 28 years. So we just celebrated this last summer our 28th anniversary. You'll get the chance to be able to meet my wife Selena later. She'll be um, probably doing some of the short presentation with me later on. We knew when we got married that we wanted to live on the ranch. We knew that we wanted to have a big family. We both came from big families. I think we talked about having 8 kids, and we actually have 9. So our last one's name is Jonas. So we nicknamed him Jonas Bonus. It's because he's kind of the bonus in the family. He's 6 years old, and our oldest is somewhere around 26, I think. So there's about a 20-year spread. All the 9 kids came. And we, yeah, again, this is our family from last year. We knew that we wanted to ranch. We knew we wanted to have a big family, and we got started. Well, let's see. So it would have been early 2000s. We were back on the ranch, or we were on the ranch. We actually really never left. After we got married, my dad asked if we could stay home that fall, the fall of 1996, and help him wean and ship the calves and get all the cow work done for the fall. And our intention was we were going to go back to school. We both had been studying in Rexburg, Idaho, and I was working towards an animal science degree, and Selena was about halfway through a degree also. And so we stayed home that fall, and we never left. So we never graduated from school, but man, have we gotten quite an education. And it's been more from the School of Hard Knocks, and it's kind of that expensive tuition. But we wouldn't trade any of it. And that was the right path for us. Like we knew that, and to kind of build out on that story a little bit, in the early 2000s, my mom and dad had cared for their aging parents, and then they passed away. They came to us and said, "Hey, we would like to go and serve missions. We'd like to go and serve a mission." We're like, "Okay." They said, "Would you be willing to manage a ranch for 18 months while we go and serve a mission?" And so we said, "Sure, we'd love to do that." We had really limited view on what it took to manage a ranch. We knew a lot of the tactical things because both Selena and I had grown up on ranches, and this is the ranch where I was raised. My grandpa and dad moved to this area, when my dad was in high school. So he spent most of his life here. I grew up here my whole life. I knew all the tactical things, but I hadn't even written a ranch check when my mom and dad left on their mission. I had never done a cash flow budget. There were so many things from the business side that I didn't know. And so the learning curve, again, was very steep. Whenever we do something new, it's going to be steep and it's going to be hard, and we're probably going to fail. But I'm grateful that my dad trusted, not so much in me, but he trusted in God, that he was doing the right things and that things would be taken care of. And they were. They came back 18 months later, and my dad made it known, or let us know that, hey, I think we might do this again. And when I'm home, I would rather be the employee, and you call the shots, and I'll do what you need me to do. And I have a ton of respect and admiration for him because of that, because, he was willing to support and help me work through some of the mistakes that I made and watch me grow. Instead of just sometimes bailing me out, which is what I really wanted to have him do sometimes. So along the way, our business has transitioned. We went from a year-round cow-calf operation operating. At that point, we were, our operation was more than 90% publicly owned. Due to different factors that happened in the business, we had to sell the BLM allotment where we wintered our cow herd, and then we consolidated to just private land. And at that point, we switched to mostly custom grazing and more of a seasonal operation. So that's a little background about our family. Bottom line is we're in the business and we get the joys, we also get the pains, and we feel the struggles. During the summit, many of you answered or participated in the questionnaire that I put out there. What's the greatest concern that you guys have right now? And we'll just do another little informal one. I like to keep you guys engaged here. We'll just make this super simple. If profitability is a primary concern for you, put Y in the chat for yes. So we asked that question during the summit, and I think the other options were acquiring land or succession planning, estate planning, but profitability was, quite a bit better. So we'll open up the chat. So again, if profitability is a concern for you, put in a Y. There's some of them, and then an N if it's not yours. Okay, so from a lot of you, yeah, and thanks if you guys are still answering that questionnaire. That is great. You can scroll up in the chat, or I might be able to repost it here. Okay. Okay. So if that's our number one concern, we probably ought to address that a little bit in this class today, the profitability side of it, right? And Marlene Moore, I didn't even know you were signed up for this class, Marlene. Whenever I see Marlene come in, I'm just like, well, let's just make her host and let's learn from her. We appreciate Marlene being here. And if she says profitability is always a concern, then that tells me a lot. What does that mean? I mean, she's very good at what she does. She's very seasoned. She's been through multiple schools, but yet still profitability can be a concern. It probably looks a lot different for Marlene than it does for you that are starting out, or for me that's kind of somewhere in the middle. So, okay. And then again, I just typed that in the chat. The 3 questions that'll help us in this group. Where are you from? What do you do, or the enterprises that you do? And if you are over 100,000 in gross income or /sales, or gross product, which we'll talk a little bit about what the difference between gross income and gross product is, or B, if you're under that. But we'll just keep it super simple. So just think if you're not quite to 100,000, and that would be from your agriculture enterprises, right? All things lumped together, maybe you're north of 100,000, but we're just saying just from agriculture, where are you at? Okay. All right. Very good. We're going to share screen again. Okay. I think we got to go here. So starting with why. Simon Sinek wrote a book. I don't know when it came out, a few years ago, and it's titled Start with Why. And we're going to do this little exercise here that helps us to get to the deeper why. And it's going to set the tone for what we do here throughout these 2 days that we work together. But before we do that, actually, let me go over here, and I just want to kind of lay out and make sure you guys signed up for this class. I want to be sure that you're in the right class, right? Obviously you are. You got the Zoom link and everything. But so this is the Profitable Steward class, Sustainable Ranching for the Next Generation. We focus on regenerative principles and regenerative practices. This is, if you aren't familiar with what regenerative means, hopefully you'll have a better idea of what that is by the end of this 2-day class. This whole year during 2024, we have dedicated the summits and the workshops with the theme of legacy. And we're doing that because we see that there is profitability might be the number one concern, but not very far behind that was succession planning and legacy planning and estate planning, and making sure that this business that we've created is able to be transferred to the next generation if we so desire. And so we're looking at a long view. We're looking at 7 generations down the road when we make our decisions and when we consult with people. Sometimes we've got to get through this year, and we get that, right? But long term, how are the decisions that we make now going to affect our great grandchildren for generations to come? And so that's the legacy part of it. And here's the things that we're going to deliver on during this class. We're going to talk about what it means to build a stewardship mindset. The profitability framework. We utilize, it's kind of a hybrid approach. Some of what I've learned from different schools. I am certified with the Savory Institute, and so we're going to lean more on that for the framework that we follow. We're going to talk about an Amy this afternoon. Amy Walker is going to be teaching a section on working on and working in the business and the difference between that. What we're doing here during these 2 days, it's actually going to be a little bit of both, but it's mostly just working on the business. We're not going to be going out, preg testing cows, building fence, draining pipelines, all the things that you might need to do this time of year, right? This is going to be the higher level things that you should be focused on. And this is an opportunity for you to do it with your business. Building the right team, cash flow versus net worth. That was the title of one of my presentations. My first presentation in the summit was Dirt Rich and Cash Poor. That's common for many people in our industry. Like, we have a huge net worth, but yet we struggle to pay the bills. We struggle to make the mortgage payments. Sometimes our families struggle because that money doesn't trickle down to them. And so what do we do about that? How do we balance that cash flow versus net worth? Production and profitability. We're the most productive industry. Agriculture is the most productive industry, but yet one of, and probably the least profitable. And then we'll help to identify the weak links and also the strengths. We're not necessarily going to focus on the weak links, but if we're going to put effort into something, we need to put effort where it will yield the most fruit. And so we'll look at what your weak links are for your business. We're going to look at it from a deeper approach than the superficial, what other consultants or schools might look at. I always believe that there is something that's going on beneath the surface, which will express itself above the surface. If we only address the things above the surface, it will reappear. And so when we look at the weak link, we might look at the things like profitability. Well, that doesn't tell us a whole lot. I'm not profitable. We need to dig down and say, okay, why are you not profitable? Is it your overheads are too high? Are you just not running enough cattle? Or your enterprise, they need to be scaled? Are you spending too much in direct costs? Is that margin not great enough? But then from there, we might look beneath the surface and we might say, well, maybe you're sabotaging yourself. If 1 year you're profitable and the next year you have a loss, maybe you're addicted to loss. Maybe what the issue is your subconscious programming that is continually creating this circumstance that you don't want, but it's there. And then the last piece, and this will be kind of intermingled, it's kind of with everything that we do, we talk about stewardship and what it means to be a truly profitable steward. And we approach that from a biblical perspective. The parable of the steward, of the talents. And so we look at that. We've all been given certain stewardships. What are we doing with that? How are we able to return and report? And we don't need to wait till we die to be able to do that. I think that at the end of each year, and even at the end of each day, we should give an accounting to the person that we're accountable to. And I believe that's our Creator. So if you guys are good with that, that's the flow. That is the idea here. As you notice, we do approach things from a scriptural standpoint. By no means is this Sunday school. This is not church. But that's the context that I come from. And I hope that's okay with you guys. If it's, again, whatever religion you might be coming from, that is just fine, or no religion at all. My context is that we were created by a Creator, and all things were created by Him. And He placed us here to be stewards over these creations and to learn the principles of creation along the way so that we can become co-creators And that is what it means to be a profitable steward under my definition. So, okay. So again, thanks everybody for those that are jumping on camera here, and we definitely invite you to do that, even if you are multitasking and things. So that is just fine. All right. So we're going to jump back in here. All right. So this is what we're going to be talking about over the next 2 days. The flow of this will be approximate. There's a few things that we have hard stop and start times for. We will break for lunch at approximately noon Pacific time, and we will take about a 45-minute break. So we'll come back at 45 to the hour, or 15 to the hour. And then we plan on ending at 4 o'clock Pacific time this afternoon. Tomorrow we'll work out the schedule. Right now the schedule is we'll start at 10 o'clock again Pacific time and go till 4. We'll fill in some details this afternoon about the special class that you'll be invited to for those who are under 100,000. We'll talk about what that is. Okay, so here we are. 7 levels deep. So when we start with why, a lot of times what we see is just as what is above the surface here. When we manage a ranch, this could be the grass, this could be the livestock, it could be the infrastructure, it could be the people, all the capital improvements that we've made, the homes, the pipelines, everything, the corrals and all that. That's what we see above the surface. But there's some things that might be going on, that are definitely going on beneath the surface, that we need to at least be aware of. And my encouragement is, as we start to focus on more of these things that are beneath the surface. So I'm going to share a diagram that I made, and hopefully you guys will be able to you'll be able to see this. I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth between a whiteboard and my my slides. So I drew this out yesterday. And so if you have that and the iceberg in mind, anybody know how much of an iceberg is, or what percentage of the iceberg is beneath the surface? Somebody take a wild guess, throw it in the chat. I'm going to open up my chat again here. What percent of the iceberg is beneath the surface? Yeah, 90, 70. Okay. Yeah, so it's somewhere between 80 and 90% is the research that I did, which was a very, very quick, fast Google search. Hey Siri, how much of an iceberg is beneath the surface? Yeah, it was like 80 to 90%. Okay, so we've got the bulk of, if this represents our iceberg, the bulk of it is beneath the surface. And what we see above the surface is a small percentage. And so if we're going to affect change, if this represents us as a being, or if this represents our business, if we're going to affect change, where should we put the focus? Up here or down here? Or should we have a holistic approach and look at both? Well, I think we should probably look at both. The things above the surface are easier to measure, and they're a little bit, they're more tangible. But what I've seen from my own experience and the research that I've done is that very much so what is going on beneath the surface is where real change will happen, lasting change will happen. Okay, so we're going to fill out some of this. So if we, Stephen Covey teaches that above the surface, there are 4 human needs. That is to live, love, learn, and the top is to leave a legacy. And if we study scripture, I think it's the last chapter, one of the last verses in Luke 2, it's about one of the only verses that talks about Christ and his growing up years. It says that Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and favor with man. So there's four 4 areas that Christ focused on for his growth. And those correlate with these 4 basic needs, or the 4 L's. So the live would be the physical, love would be social, of course, mind, mental, and then the top one would be the spiritual. So those are the things that are happening above the surface. And this kind of correlates also with Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like that self-actualization. The highest, the pinnacle would be the legacy. And so when we say, hey, I want to build a legacy business, that would be up here. If we focus on this, but if we're not able to make payroll and be profitable, are we ever going to get there? It's going to be hard, right? We're going to probably die with our music left in us, or our business will. So we've got to look at the base level. And my suggestion is we start looking below that as well. So the things that are happening beneath the surface, what are just as real, we're going to label this, and you guys can encourage you to pull out your journals. You can draw this, or you can screenshot it here. That's the emotional side. This would be the thoughts. Paradigms. That's not 20 cents, 2 dimes. That's paradigms, the way we view things, right? And then I'm going to have to look in this actually just came to me the other day. So I've got to get my journal out here. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. Make sure that I'm not too far off base here. Okay, yeah. So then what I put in this, okay, this F would be faith, H would be hope, D would be desires, and at the very base is why, is our unique and abiding why. When I took over management of the ranch, I quickly realized there was a lot of things that I didn't know, and I started to invest in my education. I went to the Ranching for Profit school in the early 2000s, and that kind of ignited my passion for learning. And one of the things that I really loved to learn about at that stage was also principles of leadership. Stephen Covey was still alive then. He just articulated the 4 L's. And I'd tried to slog through the 7 habits earlier, but at that point in the early 2000s, 2003, 2004, I just had a real hunger. And so as I was driving around on our BLM allotment, I spent a lot of time in the pickup, and I had cassette tapes. And so I used that truck as my university. And I would pop those tapes in, and I would listen to the 7 habits, and I would listen to other either motivational speakers or spiritual talks, things like that. And I utilized that time to be able to grow my mental capacity. And I really read what Stephen Covey taught, really resonated with me. And so I looked up, what would be the next level of working with him? And I found out, well, he actually has a coaching program. So I remember my wife and I got on a call with somebody from the Covey Foundation, and they asked us a lot of questions about what we were doing, and they asked us where we wanted to go and what our vision was. And they said, hey, if you want to work with us, there's an opportunity for you to be able to work with us and to be able to sign up for one of our coaching programs. And that was the first time I'd ever spent money for a coach. It's like I didn't even really understand what that was. But I knew that what he taught resonated with me. It was true, and it matched my principles and my values. And I believed, you didn't know for sure, but I believed that if I worked with this coach, I could get where I wanted to be faster. And so Selena and I talked about it, and we decided yeah, we should do that. And so we invested $6,000, which at that point, cows were probably worth, I don't know, maybe probably $750. I think I had a friend who bought a ranch. He bought pairs for $750 right around that time. So do the math or whatever. So I always go off what gold is worth or what cows are worth. So back then, $6,000, it was a pretty significant chunk to be able to invest in coaching. But I took the leap of faith and I did it, and I'm grateful that I did, because a lot of those principles that I learned back then affected where I am today. And because of that, I was in a kind of a mastermind group, and I told them about all the things that I was learning. And they're like, well, hey, would you coach us? I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do that, because the teacher learns the most, right? And so that was my first opportunity to be a coach to this other small group of people, as we read through the 7 habits, and I taught them the principles, and we worked on our paradigms. And I didn't have all of this clear in my mind at that point, but it was pretty cool because I had learned something and I was able to teach it to others. And that was kind of the start of this journey that I'm on now, now some 20, about 20 years later. It's like, wow, I really enjoyed that, being able to share with others. Okay. So if we look, okay, how do we get to the bottom? How do we get to the root? I'm going to invite you to do a little exercise here. And it's called 7 levels deep. Basically, what we're going to do is to ask why 7 times of yourself, right? And so this is an opportunity for you to pull out a journal, and it's super simple. And would anybody be willing to be a volunteer if we walk through this? Just raise your virtual hand and we'll ask you to unmute. So think about this as I explain how to do this. So what it looks like is we say, the first question might be what? What do you want to do? Well, I want to ranch. Why do you want to ranch? I want to ranch because I care about being a steward of God's creations. Why do you care about? So you use the answer and you put a why in front of it, and that will be your next question. So why do you care about stewarding God's creations? I care about stewarding God's creations because I want to be a good steward. Why do you want to be a good steward? Because I want to continue to learn and grow. Why do you want to? So do you guys kind of follow that? You ask why, whatever the answer is goes into the next part of the question. And then when we get generally about 7, sometimes 8 times, we'll get to a deeper why, which generally will be accompanied by maybe an emotion. It might be like either just really peaceful or an assurance. Sometimes it can be tears. It can be an emotional experience. Like, wow, that's something I didn't know that about myself. Sometimes it can be more of excitement. It can be a little bit fearful, like, oh, this is bigger than I think I'm capable of. But always when you get there, it will be a memorable experience, because if you know when you got there, if it's something that's like, okay, this is a experience that I will always remember. Now, in saying that, if you don't have that lightning bolt moment, don't think, well, I'm flawed and this system doesn't work. It might take doing it a couple times to be able to get there, and that's okay. So let me look through here. And again, anybody brave enough to volunteer? So we kind of have the mantra here in the Profitable Steward class that you can either volunteer or you can be voluntold. So and you'll probably get the opportunity to experience that.
Robin Nelson is raising their hand.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Selena. This is my wife, Selena. Everybody say hi to Selena. Cool. Okay, Robin. Cool. Let's do this. All right, we'll go ahead and mute you again, Selena. Selena is at the house that we live in. I'm at our Airbnb. My son lives here in the wintertime with his family, and it's a little bit quieter at our house. Homeschool and lots of other stuff's going on at the other house across the street. So that's why we're in different locations. So this is we're only a few hundred feet apart, but it's a lot quieter down here. Okay, Robin. So tell us a little bit about yourself to start with, and we appreciate you volunteering. Everybody just like send Robin some love in the chat. Say, I'm glad it's you, not me. I mean, you're so brave, Robin.
Uh, so we have a small cow-calf operation. We live in Washington State, kind of by the Canadian border, and we're kind of in the high mountains. So we have short seasons. We have all four, but we have a really long winter and a short spring, summer, and fall. But what we are really trying to do is we're trying to get into taking care of our land a lot better. And mostly, I mean, we're kind of the only ones like we're in our area. So we don't have anyone to learn from. We don't have anyone to ask questions from. We're just kind of trying to figure this out on our own.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Well, you're in the right spot. This is perfect. So I'll start with the first question. You've kind of answered that, but we'll go again. What is it that you want to do?
So what our goal is for all of us to be home and do ranching and have our pigs and our chickens and, on a larger scale and have my husband home.
Okay. So why do you want to have everyone home and be participating in ranching?
Because I come from a big family, and family was the most important. Didn't matter if you got along or not, family came first. And to have my kids involved and have my husband home, I mean, he works away, so he's gone 2 weeks at a time and then home for 2 weeks at a time. And it's really hard for me to try and do most of that on my own. And then I do have my son still at home, and he does help out a lot, but it would just be a lot nicer and a lot less stressful to have everybody together where everybody needs to be. And I don't know if I'm answering that right, but
No, you're good. You're good. And so why is it important that everybody is together and you're minimizing the stress and the burden on you?
So for me, it would be less worry. My kids do a really good job with, my daughter does really good. She's just finishing up paramedic school, but she's still at home, and it's super expensive, for the kids to try and go out and find their own place to live. And so we can help our kids by letting them be here, but then, you need a little bit more income to help them so they can save more.
Okay. So it sounds like it is really important that you all work together. And I guess I'll just ask that again. So you've kind of gone, it might minimize the stress, but why is it important that you're all working together on that operation?
So that way they know what to do, and we're all, just being together is, really important to me. I like having everybody there, like that connection, I guess. And then someday when, we're older and we need more help, then they'll know everything what to do to take over for us if that's what they choose.
And why is that important that they know the things to do if they choose to take over?
So if we build it up to where it is profitable and everything, goes fairly smoothly, then that way they can step into something that they don't have to go through all of the what should I do? How do I do this? Or, they'll already know everything just to keep continuing what we've learned and what we started.
Okay. And why is that important to you to give them that jump start so they don't have to start over?
Because we've started over a lot, and it's hard. Like you do one thing and then you kind of lose your butt, and then you have to try and figure out what next to do or what is going to work. And those ups and downs, they're really stressful and just takes a toll on everything that you're trying to do. So I don't want them to have to go through all of that.
Yeah. Yep. I think now we're getting there. Why is it important that they not have to go through all of that? The stress.
So they can actually, live their life and be happy and be, you know, that way they don't have to have all the worries they can raise their families and not have to worry about paying the bills this month or, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's really good. What do you feel like we're close to the deep why? Is
I
there
think
one,
so.
or there may be one or two more?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So let's just go there. I think we're probably about 8 or 9 whys now. Um, so where were we at? Um, let's see. So your last answer was, can you go ahead and repeat your last answer, why that was important, and then we'll pick up from there. Because I
So
think
that
we're really close.
so they don't have to worry about paying the bills this month or, stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, very good. And so why is that important that they don't have to have the worry of paying the bills and things are taken care of?
So they can, go about their everyday lives without as much stress as we've gone through, and they would have the help, and they would have I guess they would have a better chance.
Yeah. Okay. And the last one, so let me just interject as a coach. Um, I can sense that there has been some stress and that your journey hasn't been easy. Is that,
Yeah, it's been pretty rough.
yeah.
We don't have a lot of support. I had a lot of support from my dad, but he passed away a couple of years ago, and so it's been rougher after that. And now we're just kind of trying to figure everything out on our own, and I really don't want them to feel as lost, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So do you feel like that's the not wanting them to have to go through those experiences and feeling lost? Like, is that your deep why?
I think so. Yeah, because
Okay.
you know, still half the time we feel lost in what to do and where to go, and yeah, so I don't want them to have to do that at all.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. That's good. So, everybody give Robin a big round of applause. Good job, Robin.
Thanks.
Um, so how does that, as you get to that bottom of the iceberg, the why, that anchor point, how does that feel to uncover that?
I didn't actually really realize that was like, I thought my why was to get my husband home and we can work together and do stuff together, but really it comes down to my kids and how rough it's been for us, and I think that's really been enlightening for me. You know, I didn't really realize I didn't realize that. I know
Yeah.
I always want better for my kids, but yeah.
Yeah. That's powerful. So there's different people that have taught this principle, but I think I first learned it from some guy by the name of Dean Graciosi. And he said that very similar to yours, his deep why was, he didn't want his children to have to suffer like he did, worrying about watching their parents worry about financial things. He wanted to help them to break free. That deep why, if we tap into that, everything upstream is affected. That's the power of going through this exercise. Sometimes when we feel like, dang it, it's just not worth it to go through these challenges, wherever level they're at, the emotional challenges, the profitability would probably be here, the relationship side, not feeling like you know enough, and by how in the heck am I ever going to create a legacy business? So tap into that deep why. Okay, very good.
Thank
So
you.
that's what we're going to do. And you can practice that and just say, is there anything a little bit deeper? But so we're going to take about 10 minutes and everybody's going to go through that little exercise now. And we're going to, let's see, does it have the right one pinned here? Okay, there we go. There we go. There we are. Okay, we're going to go through this exercise. So what it looks like is you ask the question, why do I want to do this? I assume we're going to start with a question, something around agriculture. Why do I want to farm? Why do I want to ranch? Why is it important for me to have a regenerative ranch? And then whatever that answer is, you ask why again. And I'm an auditory learner. So sometimes I'll do this when I'm going for a walk in the morning. It is also helpful to be able to write it down. And so for 10 minutes, we'll come back at 11:16. And then I would like to get a couple shares and so don't overthink it. Just the first answer that comes, ask why, write the question, ask why. Are there any questions before we go to this working exercise? Anything that you wanted to add, Selena? Clarify? Go ahead and raise your virtual hand. And so I have everybody kind of force muted here because sometimes we don't want to hear cows mooing in the background and kids and stuff. So if you do have a comment, go ahead and I'll raise your virtual hand and I'll unmute you.
So maybe you could stand to the side for a second and let people who want to take a picture of that. But maybe just a quick recap of like what's the significance of the iceberg. And so you kind of combined two ideas here and from the hierarchy of needs and adding the iceberg in there. And so then the why is kind of like the keel on a boat that's keeping everything from tipping over. But maybe just a little recap of how that fits. I think some people are wondering, like, the hierarchy of needs, like where does that fit? And then we kind of see how all the other stuff fits below. But again, why is it important to know your why?
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of in the day and age that we live in right now, we're living in the information era. I feel like one of the responsibilities of Ag Steward is to be able to bring balance into that. Most of the other schools that are out there that teach about regenerative principles, they're looking above the water level, above the line. When through the experiences that I've been through and the training that I've been through, if we only look at above the surface, things are, and we may address the symptom, whatever it might be, the physical symptom of a headache, the profitability symptom. But if we don't realize that maybe there's something down beneath the surface that's sabotaging us, it could be the paradigms that our parents taught us inadvertently about money, and that money doesn't grow on trees, or that's the root of all evil. Then when we're profitable up here above the surface, we're going to sabotage ourselves again. And so I believe that looking at the bigger picture is important. And we're going to illustrate this in different ways. This is kind of our first iteration. And maybe if this doesn't resonate completely, maybe one of the other ways that we go through will make more sense to you. But like Selena said, yes, at the very bottom of that, the thing that keeps us upright, that keeps us balanced is our deep why. And when I started working with Stephen Covey, I think before I actually signed up for the coaching program, he talked a lot about mission and creating a mission statement. And I remember my family was gone and it was a Sunday afternoon. And I walked up above the house, kind of on the edge of some willow and aspen trees. And it was a warm afternoon. And I had my journal and I was like, I'm going to write my mission statement. And I did. And it was something that I'll always remember because I tapped into the spiritual. And I believe that as I was doing something that I thought was learning, I was tapping into all these things below and really tapping into who God created me to be. And so the essence of that mission statement is still alive today, which for me is, as a disciple of Jesus Christ, I live a life of integrity and purpose and inspire others to do the same. So that's the essence of my mission statement. So, okay. So hopefully that clears that up. So again, in the 7 levels deep exercise, you ask why you want to do it. The answer that you come up with will be the next question that you ask with why in front of it. Why do you want to be a regenerative rancher? I want to be a regenerative rancher because I care about feeding the world. Why do you care about feeding the world? I care about feeding the world because I think we're headed in the wrong trajectory. Why do you think we're headed in the wrong trajectory? Okay. Does that make sense? So let's go. This is not a break. If you need to run and use the bathroom, certainly you can do that. You can do that at any time. Just turn your cameras off. You guys are already muted. Run and use the bathroom or leave if you've got a laptop or whatever you're working on. I get it. So we just kind of roll through this, but this is a working exercise and we will come back at 21 after the hour. All right, let's bring it back in, you guys. And okay, very good. All right, well, I'd love to hear from 2 of you. We'll do a voluntold here, and let's get Gail. Would you be willing to share? And then Colt, if you're available, would you also share? I think I've asked you both to unmute. Okay, you should be able to accept that. So Colt Summers will be next. Gail, we'll go ladies first here.
Okay.
All right. What'd you come up with, Gail? What's your deeper why?
Oh, well, I started with why, what am I trying to do and why? That's my basic business model. I'm trying to produce 3 forms of protein sold direct to market. Beef, pork, chicken. I do a little bit of vegetable and egg and dabble in dairy. So that's the what. And when I say why, I say because I have the need to be able to work from home. I take care of a 25-year-old special needs son. And I'm a mother of 4, grandmother of 9. And I'm trying to produce an income that allows me to stay here, homestead a little bit, and build a farm business at the same time, without having to farm out my family's care, be able to involve everyone in it if I need to. And at the same time, create the next why would be so that when I'm gone, there's a business there for my other children to take care of their special needs sibling.
Cool.
And they can hop in and he doesn't have to, his life isn't disrupted. We've got 3 special needs grandchildren as well, and everybody can pile in and help each other. And there's hopefully a already thriving business. Everybody can jump in and take up where I left off.
Love it. I love
That's
it.
our why.
Do you feel like that was like you uncovered something, or were you pretty clear on that before?
I'm pretty clear.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
that's
devoted.
Cool.
I'm engineered this way. I think that this was by design. I'm also visually impaired, so I can't drive anywhere, can't go anywhere. So farm life is man, this is perfect because God gave me everything I need to feed my family, take care of my kids, and provide a business that they can take up for when I'm gone, all in one place. So that's I'm pretty focused. I think it was a gift.
Yeah, very good. Yep, that's powerful. So it is powerful. Like when we find that, hey, we don't have the energy to do some of the stuff that we need to do, I've found that if I tap into my deeper why, that gives me the energy to do those things. So, man, if we did nothing else today, but just really tapped and nothing else this 2 days, but just got really clear on what our why was, I think that would serve us. That would be something that'd be super powerful for generations to come.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear from William Johnson. Thank you, Gail. Give Gail a big round of applause.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, Jared, everybody else.
Yeah, welcome,
Thank-
William. Love to hear what your deeper why is, what you uncovered.
All right, well, when I finally got down to the bottom, it was because I believe we're made to work with our hands and lead family. That was my deeper why, was really just focusing in on what I feel like we were made to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So work with your hands, lead your family, and you're choosing to do that in agriculture.
Correct.
Cool. Yeah. How will this help you? Knowing that deeper why? Do you feel like it's does it provide clarity? Does it provide stability? Or what do you
Well, I think it's something I kind of already inherently knew, just because I've worked in the corporate world. There's no real fruits to your labor, I guess. So there's no real, I mean, yeah, you might make money and you get a paycheck every other week. But with being in agriculture, I feel like it's more fulfilling. There's more
Lifestyle.
reward and you feel more satisfied with your progress. And then also for me, it's being able to be closer to home and having a more, maybe not free schedule, but a little bit more chance for more interaction with family and even community.
love it? Yeah. Where are you located, William?
I'm in South Carolina, so coastal plains of South Carolina.
Okay. All right. All right. That's good. Glad to see you still have a home to live in. Were you affected by the hurricanes there?
Well, we're always affected by hurricanes, but no damage here.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, very good. Yeah. Give William a big round of applause. And then Martha, Martha, would you like to share real quick if there was something that you uncovered around your why? And then yeah,
Yes.
see you guys found the emojis, how to be able to clap there. You guys are good.
Hi, my why. This been for the last 15 years working on it. Why I love this, because of the food, good food, and if we participate in growing the best way is even better.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a ranch. I know what's a good food, and I like to lead my kids to that side if they like, but I wanna participate in growing food.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on here. Okay. So that little exercise, as simple as it was, I believe it can be super powerful. And as we go throughout these next day and a half together, everything that we talk about, everything that we go through is going to fit within this framework. And so just kind of have that in your mind when we talk about something like, where does it fit? Is it above the surface? Is it below the surface? And again, I believe that everything above is affected by what is below. There's a principle that you know, when you plant a seed, the seed has to go down to go up. And so that's what we just did. We're planting some seeds here. We're going down. We're tapping into our why so we can go up and we can bear fruit. We can do all the things that we want to do that are above the surface, all the fun things about agriculture, ranching, farming, growing crops, growing cattle, growing kids. Those are the reasons why we do that. When we get really clear on our why, that gives us the power to do it. Okay, so we're going to dive into the 4 ecosystem processes here. Oh, I got to share my screen. And I think I haven't ever taught it like this before, but we're going to see how this compares to what we just talked about here. Okay, you guys, am I sharing the right screen? I don't know if I am. Let's see here. Okay, there we are. There we are. Okay, now I think we're there. All right. So we're going to go through. We're actually going to skip down here. Holy cow. I think I might have the wrong presentation here. Sorry, guys. Let me stop share for just a minute. I'm going to find this. Give me just 1 second here. Oh, I think I copied it. Okay. Yep. So as we do that, somebody has another thought or idea from the Y exercise. I think I pasted that to the wrong presentation this morning. So bear with me just 1 second. Oops. Okay, here we go. So with the 4 ecosystem processes, it kind of, for me, it gives the foundation for everything that we do. And whenever we look at something that's going on our farm or ranch, like, we should always be asking the question, how does this affect the other components within our business, within our farm or ranch? Because nothing is isolated. Like you guys have probably all heard of the butterfly effect, right? Okay, there he is. Oh, there we are. I'll just open it up in this presentation. So something that happens, you know, a continent away can absolutely affect what goes on thousands of miles away. Okay, there, I found it. Thanks for bearing with me. Okay, there we go. So with that in mind, thinking about the butterfly effect, thinking about how everything affects everything, we're going to talk about the 4 ecosystem processes here. And this is really the foundation for everything that we do. And I believe that if we have in mind this chart behind us, I believe there's a lot that goes on beneath the surface too. Obviously, we're finding out with soil health, there's a whole world underneath that we either did or didn't know. So again, the 4 ecosystem processes are water cycle, mineral cycle, energy, flow, and community dynamics. And there's lots of information out there about this. Understanding Ag teaches this. The Savory Institute teaches it. I don't know if it was Alan Savory where it originated from, but it makes a lot of sense. So the first one is energy flow. Basically, that is the ability to convert solar energy through photosynthesis into biomass. And that's the foundation for everything on the earth, even the fossil fuels that we use. One of the theories about how they came to be was all the biomass that didn't have the fungi to be able to decompose it years ago. That created the fossil fuels that we're now able to harvest now. So energy flow, it's the sunlight converted into plant biomass. I don't know how Josh Adams figured this out, but whenever sunlight strikes the ground, in a square foot, there is 4,000 horsepower of sun energy that strikes each square foot of ground each year. So tons of potential energy coming from the sun. And as farmers and ranchers, it's our job, and as stewards, even if you're growing a backyard garden, even if you're growing a lawn, it's our opportunity to be able to maximize that solar energy potential growing something that is productive, even if it's just a lawn and it's just for beauty, right? So here's a little diagram of energy flow if you want to screenshot it. Basically, again, it's kind of the foundation, one of the foundation, or not the foundation, but it's one of the sources of energy for everything that happens on the earth. So how much photosynthesis is happening here? A lot or a little? Obviously with tillage, that's one of the challenges besides creating havoc with the soil microbiology, is we are removing any chance for things to be able to photosynthesize, and it kind of sets back succession. Then we're going to start with, from bare grounds to annual weeds to annual grasses to perennial weeds, and that whole succession happens and gets started over every time we till. So that's one of the reasons why, it's very disruptive to the energy cycle. So energy flow, you might think, well, how much photosynthesis is happening here compared to here? This is actually on our irrigated acres, so not all of our acres look this way, but the irrigated acres that we have, this is a daily move with a mob. This on the right is actually, I guess I can point with here, this is where we're moving out of. This is probably the first move of the season, so we're leaving lots of leaf material behind to be able to photosynthesize. And we're going into some pretty tall grass, a little, probably could have been grazed a little bit earlier, but here we've got a very short growing window. And so things grow super fast and then it goes dormant. And so it kind of is what it is. You could have thousands of head of cattle for the month of June, and then you need to destock. So you just kind of do the best you can. A lot of times you're grazing the grass at not the most opportune time, but we're able to lay down a lot of biomass and build soil in the process. Okay, so any questions, comments on energy flow? Anybody want to summarize it? Have a what? Yeah, let's get one quick share. What we'll hear from, how about Kirk? How would you describe energy flow, Kirk? Kurt, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I guess I'm not 100% clear on your question there, as far as you just want me to describe that cycle that you just went through. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Do you have a simple way to be able to summarize what energy flow is?
Basically, yeah, you're capturing that energy from the sun through photosynthesis in the plants that are there to grow the forage that we need for the livestock, with proper management, improving that, and possibly even improving water retention, forage growth with the proper forms of grazing management, especially in like non-selective, high density, short duration grazing programs can really improve that energy consumption.
Cool. Very good. Yep. I think you got it, Kurt. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the next cycle is the water cycle. Basically, it's not how much water we get, it's how effective we are with the water that comes. Some kind of one of the mantras now is how much water the regenerative ranchers ask each other, how much water did you get? We got all of it, because it's going in the ground, it's not running off. And what makes an effective water cycle? It is lots of biomass already to start with. How do you start that cycle? Well, Alejandro Carrillo is a good example of that in the Chihuahuan Desert, right? Going from bare soil, minimal photosynthetic activity, and the cows are how he was able to do that, to be able to kind of help jumpstart that cycle. And so the bovine is what God put on this earth, or livestock in particular, not just the cow, but certainly all classes of livestock can be able to help to with all of the ecosystem processes, but especially with the water cycle, when we find that there's a broken water cycle, which there is, I think throughout the world, there definitely is. Why are we seeing such crazy weather patterns? It's, if we look again at the root cause, it's probably something going on beneath the surface. It's a broken water cycle. So how do we affect change in that water cycle? Grow more biomass. How do we start that process? Utilizing, the moving the cattle more often, being able to implement all the principles that we learned from the schools, doing everything that we can to keep the ground covered and keep a living root in the soil throughout the year. So I don't know how many of you guys are, if anybody here is specific row crop farmers. Yeah, I should probably ask that. And I'll open up the chat here. Is anybody exclusively row crop without a livestock component? You can just put in, just curious. Okay, so we've got Lance that's exclusively row crop. Okay, that's good. Yeah, so that was a good question for you guys. How would you utilize the tools that you have if they don't include livestock to be able to jumpstart that water cycle? Do you guys have any ideas, those that put in there, that you guys are, either William or Lance or anybody else? Okay, get a cover crop immediately following the cash crop. Yeah, I think in the age that we live in right now, there's a lot of research being done about cover crops. So absolutely, right? The 6 soil health principles, those absolutely apply. Yeah, definitely. So, okay, very good. So I think we've got the water cycle. The next one is mineral cycle. Basically, this will tell us all the things if a mineral cycle is working good or if it's working poorly. For me, one of the ways that I judge a working mineral cycle is I see how quick these little bag of goodies that come out of the back end of the cow, how quickly they are incorporated into the soil. The quicker that they are, the better the mineral cycle is working. And that is all driven by biology. So if we find out in our fields those dry frisbees, the cow pies that have been there for sometimes years, then we have a pretty broken water cycle. What contributes to that? It could be, it's always through management, right? Or mismanagement. We have to ask ourselves, are we, what kind of insecticides might we be using that are affecting the dung beetles and earthworms and all the biology in the soil? Are we using dewormers on our cattle? How do we get away from our reliance on some of those things so that we can boost the mineral cycle? So that's a mineral cycle. It is, we want things to be breaking down, whether that's cow pies or whether that's the biomass that's laid on the ground here. So again, this is probably right after a move. So lots of biomass being laid on the ground, lots of green plant material and some dry plant material that's being laid on the ground. Functioning water or functioning mineral cycle means that that's incorporating quickly and that it is doing it biologically, not chemically. If it's oxidizing and you see the old grass plants that are gray and they're breaking down through oxidization, I don't know what that word is, but not biologically, not by the bugs in the soil, then we know, okay, this is not a functioning mineral cycle. Okay. And the last one is community dynamics. So that basically is a functioning soil food web where things are in balance beneath the surface, above the surface. Lots of diversity. Nature loves diversity. It abhors monoculture. We probably all know this from different classes that we've been on. But the more diversity, the better. One of the keys to diversity is when we find an overpopulation of something, we need to ask, what can I add? Not what do I need to take away? So that could be an overpopulation of coyotes, or it could be an overpopulation of grasshoppers, or whatever it is, of weeds. We think, well, we've got to get rid of that pest species. And rather than saying, well, I've got to get rid of something, there's probably something, if we look at it from a holistic standpoint, there's something that's missing that needs to be added. And so nature tries to add those things. It's going to bring in the first responders, the weeds and the annual grasses when we create bare soil through management. It is trying to add something. And then we combat that and we say, well, that's stupid. I don't want weeds, and I don't want cheatgrass, or I don't want these pests. And so we combat the pest, and we're just perpetuating the problem. So community dynamics, diversity, diversity, diversity. We do third-party regenerative verification with the land to market ecological outcome verification with the Savory Institute. So that's a lot of words. Bottom line is the Savory Institute sends folks out once a year. They do, on the 3 different properties, they do 10 different annual sites, and every 5 years they do 3 long-term sites. So across the whole ranch, there's 30 short-term sites and 9 long-term sites that we monitor. And it's been valuable to be able to see that. We're now into next year will be our 6th year on the one property, 5th year on the other properties. And so we have a trajectory now. We're able to see where we started, not where we started, unfortunately. Would have been great. It's kind of like, when's the best time to plant a tree years ago? When's the best time to monitor years ago? But the second best time is today. So you don't necessarily need to have a third-party verification, but when we do that, we are looking at how well those 4 ecosystem processes are functioning. And so this site here is one of our riparian areas. It's not all of the ranch looks like this. And actually, if you were to turn the camera around 180 degrees and you were to look to the south, it would just be sagebrush. And so there's a lot of diversity. But this is the highest scoring site on the whole ranch. And so if we look at the 4 ecosystem processes, what do you guys see? And type it in the chat here. What do you guys see that would make this score the highest? So we're looking at energy flow. It's not necessarily there's not a first and a last, but we started with energy flow. So how much photosynthetic material, how much photosynthesis is happening here? We have different varieties of species. We've got some tall, we've got some short, we've got some forbs, we've got some legumes in amongst here. So a little bit of photosynthesis or a lot. So comparative to other sites, this is not max. I don't know. It's probably pretty maximum on the energy flow is photosynthesis for the potential that it's there. Community dynamics. How much diversity do we have here? Again, there's quite a bit, right? There's different layers, there's different levels, there's different heights. Lots of diversity. And even though this creek dries up in the summertime, this tends to stay really green. Why? Because it's because it's shaded. And then also because the ground is just so spongy. There is so much organic matter there that it holds on to the moisture. So community dynamics, energy flow. What else did we have in there? Water cycle. Oh yeah, water cycle was there. How well is the water cycle functioning? Again, on this side, it's pretty good. One of the things that we look for when we monitor is ground cover. because ground cover, bare ground affects all ecosystem processes. And so if you've got a lot of bare ground, it's heavily weighted and you're going to score lower, kind of across the board. And this is absolutely covered. Even though we did our monitoring this year after we had grazed it, that kind of, it removes that bias, you know, because even after you graze it, things should still be covered. It's either going to be laying down or you didn't denude it by your grazing practice. Okay, and then the result of that, when things are in balance, this is what you get. This is our irrigated fields again. This one on the left is just a cowpie turned upside down. And not every spade full of sod looks like this, but along our ditches, where there's good soil moisture, this is what you see. When you're striving to bring things into balance, nature loves it and it responds. And this is just a pretty awesome experience when this happens. So on the bottom right-hand corner, my son Weston and I were out irrigating, and we usually move our tarps. You can kind of see it in the corner here, but these plastic tarps, we move them about every 2 days. And utilizing the runoff from the snow melt in the early spring as it comes down off the hill. And then we spread that out over these fields that are here surrounding our house. So we went down, and this was about 2 years after I had started really focusing on soil health. I'd been to Nicole Masters' class. I started working with Ken Hamilton, who's been on some of our events, and I was just really committed to like focusing on soil health and trying to graze it the best that I could. And when I started, I felt, you know, like, man, this is silly. I'm driving around these fields with this big 3-wheeled sprayer, and I'm not spraying out herbicide or insecticide. I'm spraying out compost tea and compost extract and focused on building biology. And does this really work? And then about 2 years later, this is what I found. And I just felt like nature had taken my meager efforts and had amplified that and said, we see what you're doing here. We see how you're striving to be a steward, and thank you. And thank you for doing that. That's the power of understanding the 4 ecosystem processes, is it does bring things into balance. It does create more resilience. And so when you go through those challenges of either a flood event or a drought or even wildfires, things are going to bounce back a lot quicker if you're focusing on bringing on not just one, but all 4 of the ecosystem processes together. So when we're grazing, even when I'm putting out mineral or when I'm feeding cows in the wintertime, I'm always asking myself, this thing that I need to do anyway, how is it going to affect other things? So for example, you know, I'll put out mineral and maybe I need some disturbance in certain areas where there's bare ground already or where there's weeds. And so I'll go out of my way to put the mineral tub there or the salt block there so that we're encouraging some disturbance to be able to speed up these processes. When we're feeding hay, we're going to, it's kind of a different ways to be able to view this, right? One of the principles is, you know, you work on your best fields first. And so we kind of balance that. So, you know, sometimes we're going to put out our biologies and our compost teas, and we're going to be really strict about our grazing on our irrigated meadows. But when I'm feeding hay in the wintertime, sometimes I'll go to some of that alkali flats or some of the monoculture sagebrush country, and I'll feed up there so that I can spread some of that fertility out across these acres. And we can share some of the seed from the meadows and be able to share that to some of the outlying areas. So, okay, so it looks like I got a couple questions. Yeah, Kurt, go ahead. Well, let's find you here. Do you know how to raise your virtual hand, Kirk? That'll make you easier to find. And then Wendy, I don't know. I've never thought about the nanoplastics. That's a good question. Certainly it probably does have somewhat of an effect. Or Heather, if you're there and able to find. Oh, there you are. All right. Cool. Yeah, go for it, Kirk.
So you talked about bringing in some biological, some of that compost tea, looking and seeing how much difference that made. Looking back on it, would you have done quite a bit more volume, or maybe spread it out over quite a bit more acres to really give a jump start versus the amount that you did do?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things that I've learned is it's really important to leave a control area. I tend to be like, oh, this is good. I'm just going to do all the acres. And so we've since have started doing controls with what we do and doing testing. So the biologicals evolved to even doing some biodynamics. And that is definitely getting into the beneath the surface, harder to measure stuff. And with that, we have done some testing and controls. So all that to say is I don't know enough. Like I don't know enough because I wasn't strict enough in saying I saw where we came from, which was pretty good. Are we there yet? We're not there. We've integrated some cover crops and things also, but that would be my one thing recommendation is if you're going to do something, leave some strips and test. So did that answer your question? Cool. Okay.
Yeah, I guess what I'm thinking is,
yeah,
if you're going in to an area that's needs some help, would you go with a lot of amendments to jumpstart it versus a little?
Yeah. That is a good question. So it a lot depends on your context. Like on our irrigated fields, they respond pretty quickly because we have more of a year-round supply of water. On our uplands and especially the high pH alkaline flats that we have down in these valleys in Nevada, those are tough to work with. And so my dad had the mentality that you make your least productive more productive. But if you double your carrying capacity, or if you double your forage capacity or your carrying capacity or your dry matter production on these alkaline flats, and you go from 250 pounds per acre to 500 pounds per acre, I mean, that's a big improvement. But if you take these irrigated meadows and you go from a ton, 2,000 pounds per acre, and you double that, that's where you start to see, those dramatic increases, exponential increases. So even though 10% of our ranch is irrigated, it makes up about 50% of our production. So it's kind of it's kind of having those in balance.
So just from our conversation the other day, would you say that in answer to his question, like if your issue is compaction, then you're going to want to look at your biology is what's going to break up compaction. But if your issue is something else, then you would do something else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. So some of the things that when we've had to jumpstart these areas, grazing is always part of it because we're ranchers. Again, whenever we're moving the cattle, the principle is the cattle are at the right place at the right time for the right reason with the right behavior. So I think that is a savory principle. Tony Malmberg talks about that a lot. The right place at the right time for the right reason with the right behavior. The cattle aren't stressed. Sometimes we forget that key component with the right behavior, because if they don't have the right behavior, we're going to have a loss in production, and that production is going to affect us economically, which will have an effect on everything else we do, including our own stress. So without being prescriptive to Kirk or to anybody else here, context matters. And, you know, I guess what context matters and what's your vision? And then what's the productive capacity of this land? On our alkaline flats, it's kind of like, we haven't ignored them. We put in cross fence and we put in pipelines and we graze them. It's once overgrazing for just a couple days with as big a mob as we can put together. And then we change up our season of use on that so that last year we grazed it in the fall. This year we grazed it during the growing season. And that is the best way to be able to help that country. We could pour hundreds of dollars per acre out there and putting out sulfur, things to try to drop the pH, or gypsum, and even biologicals. But there's really no food out there for the biologicals to survive on. So we have to we have to look at other tools. So MJ, are you there? I see you raised
Hey there. Can you hear me? Okay?
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, a little bit sketchy,
okay.
but
sorry, I'm in the barn, so okay, let me try something. Hold on.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. We can hear you.
Okay, let's try this. I took you off my cheap little Bluetooth. So my question is, I've seen conflicting information about compost, and we have a really nice manure spreader and a barn full of horses, and we've got nice compost piles. I've seen, yes, it's a good thing to spread, and other places says no. So would you clarify that? And then also, sorry, I'm out of breath. And also how to make a compost tea. Like what is that, and how do you make that?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, and first of all, I'll give you the caveat that I am not the soil guru. So when it comes to that, we'll outsource that to either William DeMille that works here on the ranch, or Josh Adams that works with us. But basically, the reason that manure gets a bad rap is that it's highly bacterial. And so most of the time, what you're pulling out of a feedlot, what you're pulling out of a horse barn, it is organic matter, and it's going to be good. But especially horse manure, it's going to be highly bacterial. So it's not true compost unless you've inoculated it and you followed a process where it heats up. You're getting your fungal component to be able to grow in there. And the fungi is generally what soils need. Like most soils are already pretty high in the bacterial side. And so and it could be anaerobic bacteria too, especially if it's been piled. A good way, MJ, to be able to know if it's good to spread or not is, does it stink? Compost shouldn't stink. It should not have any adverse smell. So when you're driving by these dairies and feedlots and things, and you have to roll up your window, and that is populating a bunch of anaerobes that are not healthy. Is it still valuable to spread that? Maybe. The better thing would be to, learn a little bit about composting. And again, I think, William could help you with that. Basically putting it with some old hay, mixing it up, getting it wet, and then inoculating it probably with some good fungal components so that you get that, and then you get what you need to grow. And a good the Johnson Sioux bioreactor, if you guys don't know anything about that, you put that in your notes. Johnson Sioux, Dr. Johnson, and his wife's name she's a Oriental gal. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Amy. Johnson Sioux bioreactor. That's one of the simplest ways to be able to make compost. It's a no-fail system. So you can take your manure, you can take your yard waste, you can take your old moldy hay, you can put it through that bioreactor, and out comes something. And my understanding is it doesn't even inoculate it, because everything is everywhere, and it attracts the biology to it that it needs. So I think Gail had a question. So if your budget for amendments is small, would you improve with total amount of amendments in a small portion of your land, or doing a minimal amount over all of your land? Okay, super good question. I like that. I would say focus on where you're going to get the highest marginal reaction, meaning effort for time and money spent. And energy, for energy spent, energy is represented by time and money. So if you're going to spend, if your budget is, say, $10,000 for soil amendments, and would that be best spent putting a little bit out over a lot? Probably not. I would say that, somebody, yeah, and we even had this discussion with William the other day because he helps us a lot with besides growing our food and having a year-round greenhouse and stuff, he consults with us. He's our employee, but he consults with us about soil fertility. And so we asked him that question. Once you get a good hub where biology is functioning really well, and especially if you begin to understand a little bit of what goes on beneath the surface with maybe the biodynamic side, that is able to spread. And so I would say focus on your most productive ground first. It's going to give us the biggest marginal reaction. And then from there, you can work out from there, because if you are able to increase your production on your most productive ground, your yields are going to increase. You're going to have more money to spend across those other acres. So,
but also, like, as far as the compost is basically free. I mean, it's not like you're having to invest a lot, right? To come up with your biology that way.
You still have, oh yeah, and then there was a question about how to make compost tea or extract. Yes and no. There's always labor involved in compost, and good compost is not necessarily the easiest thing to make, because it does take some monitoring. You need to be able to have your ratios somewhat right. The Johnson-Su method is a lot less technical. And I know there's some people that have done it, so they're not like using pitchfork and stuff. You can like load that thing with a front end loader. And that's if it's tedious and hard to do, and if it's something that you can't systematize and ask somebody else to be able to do, it's probably not going to get done because you've got lots of other pressing things to do. So you need to figure out ways that are simple. So, we are making compost. Like, we converted an old shed into a compost shed. We're making compost at scale on the ranch right now, but it takes a lot of volume to be able to spread compost. The way to be able to mitigate that is to make a compost extract. So some of the things that we're doing is we take good compost. William will test it under his microscope. He makes sure that it's got not many of the bad guys. There still may be some anaerobes in there. Not all anaerobes are bad. But there's going to be a high fungal component to it. There's going to be lots of diversity. And so not only fungus and bacteria, but nematodes and microarthropods and all those other creepy crawly things that should be in there. So we'll take that and then we'll put it in a paint strainer bag, and we'll put that in our turnouts when we're out irrigating. That is something that we could ask anybody to do because they're already going out there anyway. It's just stop by the greenhouse, stop by the compost shed, get a 5-gallon bucket of compost and take it with you. It's going to take an extra 2 minutes to be able to do it. That's a system that you can do. Brewing compost is a little bit more technical, and I think we didn't know how to test it when we started brewing it. We saw some good results, but I really don't know if I had the right ratio of fungal to bacteria when I spread it out there. We've gone more towards an extract, which is it's a lot faster process. And so basically you're just using water to be able to strip the microbes off of the solids and then spreading it out and then making sure that there's a good food source out there for it. So anyway, that is the 4 ecosystem processes. Are there any questions before we break for lunch here? Anything that I didn't Yeah, Wendy says high heat, less time. Yeah, just making sure that when your compost heats up, and again, I don't remember the exact temperature, but when it gets over a certain temperature, things are going to go anaerobic. So it's time to turn it. Yeah, definitely it's a good skill to have, because a lot of times on ranches, we've got material, our neighbors will spread that manure from a feedlot out onto their least productive fields. And I'm thinking, I just don't know if that's right. I mean, why not compost that and leverage that to be able to spread and get across more acres, rather than, putting inches of that manure out on some ground that's not really going to get a lot of effect. So Lance says, let's see, understanding of the carbon to nitrogen ratio of the soil really determines how successful the application of compost is. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of factors on the application of compost. The thing that it boils down to, what drives the four ecosystem processes: sunlight, microbes, minerals. When the sun stops shining, all bets are off, right? It's like, then we got bigger problems in the microbes and minerals. As long as the sun shines, as long as you get up in the morning and you see that sunrise, there's hope. The microbes and minerals, we can jumpstart that. We can do that through biologicals. Generally, the minerals are not going to be something that we can effectively supplement to our soils. And most of the time we don't really need to. Like, there's a lot of people who says, yeah, use these ancient rock phosphates, stuff like that. And maybe in the right application, maybe that's great. But certainly I would say start with the microbes first, make sure they have food. But with all of this, you've got to say, well, what are my practices? If I'm continually overgrazing, if I'm continually tilling, you've got to change those practices so that biology has a home. So that you're not driving a bulldozer through your living room every year or every other year through your practices, right? It's pretty hard to have a very good family life if that's what's happening. So, okay, everybody, sounds good. Let's take our lunch break here. It is 11 after the hour Pacific time. Let's be back here. So we'll kick off at 1 o'clock. I'll be back a little bit earlier than that if anybody needs some one-on-one help. We'll open it up for that, and then we'll officially kick off at 1 o'clock Pacific time. Translate that. So that's basically 49 minutes from now. Sound good? Okay, everybody. I would say give yourselves a big round of applause. You guys have played full out. You've abided by the rules. Respect 100%. You're present. We've tapped into our why. We know what's going on a lot beneath the surface. We're focusing on what's going on above the surface. This afternoon, we're going to do a little bit on the social side, and then we're going to work on working on the business principles. What be Whitby, as Ranch Food for Profit calls it. So we'll see you back here in 48 minutes.